We continue to follow breaking news out of Saudi Arabia, where U.S. and Ukrainian officials have reached a series of agreements about the Russia-Ukraine war, and that includes Ukraine saying it would accept a U.S. proposal calling for an immediate 30-day ceasefire with Russia. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams has more.
Well, the headlines from this joint statement coming out of Saudi Arabia is that Ukraine has agreed to a U.S. proposal to implement a 30-day interim ceasefire, though, of course, that will require Russia's agreement as well. More immediately, the U.S. has agreed to immediately lift the pause on intelligence sharing and the delivery of military aid to Ukraine. Now, that was suspended after an explosive, disastrous meeting recently in Washington between President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and President Trump. This meeting was clearly aimed at mending fences, at finding common ground, and I think the Ukrainians will be pretty pleased with that result. Remember, from Ukraine's perspective, in recent weeks, the U.S. has gone from being its most important ally, one of its staunchest allies, committing over $100 billion in aid during 3 years of war, to suspending the delivery of military aid, President Trump calling this country's elected president a dictator, and then giving him a very public dressing down at the White House. Ahead of these talks, President Zelensky stressed that Ukraine has wanted peace from the very first second of this war. But at the same time, Ukraine clearly does not want to be pressured into a ceasefire deal that rewards Vladimir Putin with territory, Ukrainian territory, and leaves the door open to him invading once again in future, because that has happened before in this country. As part of any long-term ceasefire deal, it's clear that Ukraine still very much wants security guarantees, including from the United States, to make sure that Vladimir Putin thinks twice. Back to you.
Holly Williams, thank you. I want to bring in Mark Cancian. He's a senior advisor with the Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, do we know yet what this 30-day ceasefire proposal looks like, or do terms still need to be hammered out?
Well, terms need to be hammered out for every element of this announcement, including the 30-day ceasefire. But the major elements are contained in that phrase. In other words, it's an in-place ceasefire. It will go for 30 days. It could be extended, and could be extended for an extended period of time, depending on how long negotiations go on.
So the U.S. says it will resume sharing intel with Ukraine. Do you think there's a risk they could pull it again?
I think that that's always a risk, but this is a very good sign for Ukraine. That is, that it has convinced the United States that it's willing to participate in negotiations. The United States has resumed this support so Ukraine can continue its resistance. The future's uncertain, but the ball is now in Russia's court. And if Russia does not make some concessions, they are the ones who will likely feel Trump's wrath.
So President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, is headed to Russia this week. Obviously, there's a lot that needs to be ironed out with Russia. How do you feel Russia is going to take this development, and what do you think they're going to ask for in return? It's
key what Russia responds with. So far, Russia has not indicated any interest in making concessions. They felt that they were winning the war. They felt that President Trump had now essentially backed their side. They had become even more expansive in their demands. So they will need to reevaluate their position. Trump will need to get them to do that and to make some concessions, for example, acknowledging the validity of Ukraine as a state in order for these talks to be successful.
Well, Mark Cancian, clearly still a lot to be discussed, but some positive movements potentially toward a peace deal today. Thank you for joining us on this news.